If you were to experience some kind of crisis in your life, maybe you're trying to leave a challenging relationship, maybe you got laid off, maybe you're experiencing something that you weren't really anticipating experiencing in your life. And the only thing keeping you together, if you will, is your pet, is the relationship you have with your pet. I can say, as someone who's not currently experiencing crisis, that is the only thing keeping me together. So my question for you is, what would you do to take care of your pet while also attempting to take care of yourself during a time of crisis? How would you even begin to navigate that journey? And what might that look like for you? I understand that having a pet sometimes makes those challenging moments in life easier, but there's also the challenge of caring for your pet while trying to care for yourself. So just a little invitation for everyone listening to this episode is, what would you do? What are some of the first steps you would take? And how would you want to feel during the process of taking care of yourself and taking care of your pet at the same time? I always say I want to ask you one rhetorical question and it turns into five. So I appreciate everyone for indulging me on our weekly questions. And without any further ado, I want to share with you our special guest, which is why I'm asking you these questions. So today we have the privilege of welcoming Valeri, the compassionate founder of Oasis Cat Care, a Pittsburgh-based nonprofit organization dedicated to providing safety and care for cats whose humans are experiencing crisis. Valeri's inspiring journey and commitment to helping felines and their guardians in times of need is really remarkable. I've spoken with Valeri a little bit before we hopped on today, and Valeri has this amazing, calming energy about her, which I know is exactly what those who seek her services need. So today we're going to learn a little bit more about the impactful work of Oasis Cat Care and the vision that Valeri has for creating this safe haven for cats who are kind of coming up against some friction in their lives. So welcome to the pod, Valeri. Woo!
Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited that you're here. And for those of you who may not know, Valeri, Oasis is located in Pittsburgh, and we have some dear, dear friends at Harmony Dog Rescue. Big shout out to Harmony Dog Rescue. They're doing, I guess, kind of similar work for dogs in Pittsburgh. So
Yeah.
please, I want to encourage everyone to check out our previous episode that we had with Tim from Harmony Dog Rescue as well. We've actually had a couple episodes with Tim. Tim was the one who introduced us to the incredible work that Valeri's doing. So it's really feeling like a family affair here. I'm totally into it.
Yeah, Jim's great. Harmony's great.
Tim is great. So, Valeri, can you share with us a little bit about what has inspired you to create Oasis Cat Care and the mission of providing this safety and care for cats whose humans are experiencing crisis? How did this come about, and what motivates you to do this work?
Well, so it kind of came about. I've been volunteering with like cats through cat cafes or just shelters since I was, I don't know, maybe like 18, so a long time. And it's very great and rewarding. But I think we all know it, but you really see it when you're volunteering there, is how overtaxed those institutions are. I still keep in some contact with the owner of the old cat cafe, and he was telling me they had a single pickup that was 40 cats. And you can imagine it's a cafe, so they don't have like a ton of space, and even big shelters, they're stressed. Especially we have kitten season, and there's just so many cats who come into shelters. And volunteering most recently in the shelter, I'm able to see like why a lot of animals come in, like with their paperwork. Um, and there were quite a few where it was a surrender where a person was elderly and maybe had to move into a nursing home or something like that and couldn't take their pet with them, which is devastating. I mean, I can't imagine, like, even when I have a cold and I'm laid up in bed and I like can't move enough to like cuddle with my cats the way I want to, it's heartbreaking. But like imagine like it's your final move. You know you probably don't have all that long left and you have to give up your best friend. That's terrible. So that was the beginning of it. And then I started seeing a lot of pets given up because of like the stated reason would be the person was moving. I never really thought about it. I would just be like, oh, come on, like you couldn't bring your cat with you. But I realized how much of a barrier, like especially renters have sometimes to pets. Like, I had a friend who specifically her apartment wanted $750 extra dollars down front for her to adopt a cat, which is a lot of money. Like, I mean, that's not even the worst end of it.
Wow.
And then we have a pretty big homeless population in Pittsburgh, and I've seen a lot of people out with their dogs. And I just think not, they're, they're doing their very best, that their pets have little bandanas and the dog has food when they don't. But it's just like they need support. It's hard enough, I would think, to get yourself back on your feet, let alone have to worry about your pet being out in the cold or not being able to get them food. So that was part of the inspiration too. And that made me think, like, how many of these people who stated that they were moving were actually losing their homes and couldn't
Mm.
take their cat, especially a cat, like safely with them. So that was a big part of it. And then I I thought that I would like to start something like this. And then I came upon Harmony because a friend of mine was fostering for them. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And that's kind of how it all got started. I saw that someone else was doing it for dogs, and I was like, okay, so this is a real thing. Like I could do this. So that was kind of that was the impetus. That was the start.
That's so wonderful. I appreciate you sharing that, and I feel like oftentimes, and I'm smiling because Harmony Dog Rescue has entered the chat. They've said, "Go,
I knew
go,
they would.
Val." They're here. They're with it. They're ready. And I really appreciate what you're sharing because I think, a lot of our audience members, they're at the very, least and at the very most, rather, they're volunteers, right? Whether it's for our organization, for a local animal shelter, or for both. And what I'm hearing is that instead of getting frustrated or instead of kind of casting judgment on why some individuals have to surrender their animals to these shelters, I really appreciate the curious approach you took. And instead of, casting judgment and then, going about your merry day, which is so easy to do in a shelter environment,
Oh yeah.
I I do it, guilty. It's just it's I think the easy way out. So I appreciate you getting really curious around why individuals might be surrendering their animals. And how we can kind of come together as a community, or you in this case, really taking the lead here to better understand the needs of these individuals, better understand the needs of their animals, and working on a solution that kind of meets them where they're at. And I think in for most scenarios that I've seen, that I've studied, most people really don't want to give up their animals. It really
No.
is this last, last call decision. So my next question for you is, how do you envision Oasis Cat Care making a meaningful impact in the lives of both the cats and their guardians who are facing these kind of crisis situations that you mentioned?
Yeah. Well, I think, like, first of all, when we're more like up and running and we have a little more like behind us, I think the first thing would just be being able to like provide some stress relief for a lot of people. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who, whether it's homelessness or they know they have an emergency surgery coming up and they have nowhere for their cats to go. Being able to know that we're there, and realize that, like, okay, this is a solution where I don't have to give up my pet. I don't have to pay X amount of money to a cat sitter who I don't know, to come to my home when maybe that's not an option. Especially, if you're homeless, obviously. But if you're, so like that would be great, would just be the stress relief. And also like the stress relief off the bat where they know someone's going to care for their cat, but also knowing that like they're coming back to their cat. It's not like dropping them off at a shelter or even a no-kill shelter. Like, they're going to be safe there and loved, but then you never see them again. And that's not
Mm,
really relief. That's depressing.
yeah.
So I think being able to provide that, and also being able to provide like a more, I guess, transitional, like a gentle transition for cats. I know cats in particular, they don't respond well to new environments. I think we know that.
Yes, to say
um,
the least. Yep.
yeah. And even like I my job was to socialize cats when I volunteer. Even that, like, of course that helps them, but going from being in like a home to a little cage, that's not a good transition. So I think being able to provide them with like a different home environment temporarily would be hopefully stress relieving for them as well.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful experience. I know, I love that you're a cat socializer. Me too.
It's so
Yay!
much fun.
So much fun. I always tell people that I'm there to socialize the cats, but also there to socialize myself because
Yeah.
I work from home remotely. Um, so I really appreciate how and you know, so often when we go to these shelters, we wish it, you know, it didn't have to be this way. We wish that there was another path that these cats could walk down, especially if it is temporary, you know, especially if the guardian has every intention of you know, readopting this cat. So again, I appreciate how you saw an opportunity to, you know, rewrite this cat's story, these cats' stories. I think that's really beautiful. And while we are lost in the romance of it all, maybe we can come back down to earth and you can share with us some of the challenges and barriers you've encountered in the early stages of realizing this mission. Because I know it's hard to take something from an idea into a real life full-fledged things. So what kind of challenges does someone come up against when getting this off the ground, and how have you navigated those challenges?
I think the first thing was knowing where to start, like, at all. Um, I think it was Tim from Harmony that said, like, "Start with a logo," which is not what I would have ever thought. I was
I
like,
kind
"That's
of
why."
love that.
Yeah, well, he was like, "Because if you have something to look at, it feels more real." And I was like, "Oh, that's a good point."
Yeah.
So I do feel like that was a big help, and it was a small, like, fun step, but that was a great start. So I think
It's a
that was
great
the first
logo
thing.
too. I love the
Oh, thank
logo.
you. I did
Just
that, so thank
saying.
you.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate it.
Multi-talented,
Thanks.
multi-talented.
Yeah, so that was the big thing, was knowing where to start. Um, I guess the second, well, money. Money would be the second one. Especially, there's a lot of things that you can do without, like, that are free, like starting up an Instagram, getting an email account, blah blah, all that. But like, if we're gonna have fosters, I want fostering to be as costless as possible for the fosters,
Right.
because that would be a big barrier. So they ideally it would be free, and we would be able to provide them everything they need. So that's been a big barrier. Getting money together is definitely a barrier. And then I think scoping. I think I have a problem with
Mm.
this in general in my life. I want to do everything at once. And I'll have like a
Welcome
thousand
to the
ideas.
club.
Yeah.
Welcome to
Like,
the
I'll have a thousand
club.
ideas. The people I'm working with will have a thousand ideas. I'm like, yeah, we can do all of this. And we can and we will, but not at once.
Yeah.
So realizing, like, okay, we need to pick a first step, something we can handle, start from there. Like what's feasible and what's reasonable right now. So I think that's, like, kinda the biggest thing right now, is, like, scoping,
There's
figuring out.
such a great life lesson in that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that, and I think so often we really focus on, and this is gonna sound so cheesy, but we focus on quantity when we really gotta focus on quality. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, even at the Street Dog Coalition, we wanna do all these things, but we do a pretty good job at, just really trying to focus on making our street clinics as, you know, as impactful as they could possibly be.
Yeah, I mean, you're
So
obviously
that's
doing a good job, so.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I will let the team know that you are singing their praises. So yeah, and you know, I think what I'm hearing here is that prioritizing is so important, and I think it's something that like never goes away, no matter how big your organization gets, no matter how far reaching your mission begins to extend. So yeah, I appreciate that. I think obviously you excel in that because you've made
Thanks.
it this far. And it's kind of the thing that if you don't get good at early on, it's like, ooh, it's gonna be difficult later as more and more cases land on your, you know, land at your feet and as you continue to expand. So prioritization, that's the life lesson here.
Yeah, for sure.
So can you tell us just a little bit about, you know, you mentioned how you create this almost alternative pathway, alternative to shelters for cats belonging to guardians who are experiencing this, you know, this time of crisis in their life. What kind of services do you usually provide the animal when they're in your care? What does that look like?
Yeah. So right now we're very early. We don't actually have our foster system set up. So what we've more been handling now is cases of like abandonment.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is a different situation, but equally difficult. So what we've been doing right now is kind of starting up or enhancing these relationships with like shelters and small rescues around here. um I've found that even like as busy as shelters and places are, like they want to help. And
Oh, that's
so like
great.
they may have, one resource, but they can't help you with this part of it, or they can help you with this but not this part. So right now it's kind of been relationship building, and kind of getting these like abandoned cats off the street. So our very first cat, my partner named him Friendly because he was super friendly, very creative naming. But he was in a rough situation where his owner could no longer care for him and he was stuck outside. And he had been an indoor outdoor cat. So that was a big change for him. And the initial difficulty was that it was kitten season and nowhere could take him. But I was able to connect with some like local TNR folks and they helped us feed him. They knew the neighbors in the neighborhood. So the neighbors helped us feed him, which was really nice. And then we were able to get him into a shelter. Of course, the day that the shelter opened up was like the one weekend I was not in town. So I was like, well, I can't pick him up today. We were able to get someone else to pick him up. The folks at the shelter like stayed out. They were like, you can get here late, we'll be here. Like, worst comes to worst, if we're out, we'll drive over and meet you there. So they were able to take him and they gave him a place to stay, and he ended up getting adopted with a new cat sister. So right now that's kind of where we're at, is working with other organizations to make sure we can help keep these cats safe and get them inside when they need it, and socialize them. We have a case right now where a cat was abandoned, and he's very, very shy. So it's the
Oh,
opposite of Friendly, where he's going to be a little more difficult to trap, where Friendly just walked in the carrier. So he was
wow.
easy in that. Yeah, he didn't care. But this
Wow.
guy's going to be, a little bit of a different case. So it's kind of case by case right now.
Okay. That's fair. And I
Yeah.
think it sounds like over time maybe you'll start to see some similarities in cases and start to kind of create programs around I'm totally speaking on your behalf here.
No, I mean,
Maybe
that's kind of the goal.
that's awesome. Kind of create programs around these segments of individuals who are maybe experiencing somewhat similar crises in their lives and requiring somewhat similar types of care for their animal. Is that how you envision that working out?
Yeah, and I think too, like, obviously abandonment is going to happen. But I think part of our goal will be to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
Even if, I mean, our main goal would be to return, these cats to their owners who want to take them. But if someone can't take them back, I think that has to be part of our programs too. Having an adoption program, having a slightly longer term foster program. So yeah, there's going to have to be different levels, I guess, of program almost.
Amazing. I feel like I said this a little bit earlier, but I want to recognize how completely inspiring you are to, I'm sure,
Thanks.
me. Yeah. I know you don't do this to for any kind of credit, but I'm gonna give it to you anyway. It's just, as a cat socializer myself, at the beginning stages of going into a shelter and socializing cats, you start to feel bad, right? You're like, I wish these cats weren't in here. Like, I'm happy they're not on the street. I'm happy that
Yeah.
they're, a step away from adoption, but you feel bad. And then after a while, you kind of start to feel a little bit like numb to it, for lack of a better word. You have this level of acceptance about the current situation that the cat's in. And I'm sure that still exists for you, for me. But so often, you know, I have to imagine other cat socializers just kind of fantasize about creating a system where some of these cats, especially cats who could be reunited with their guardians, don't have to go through this. So, just you sharing your story alone is so inspiring to me. Right now, I'm
Oh,
thinking, I'm like, do I need to create my own Oasis Cat
Do
Care?
it.
Oh
Well, maybe we'll
god.
be national someday. That would be great.
Maybe. So it's just so inspiring to hear you say that. And of
Thanks.
course, Harmony Dog Rescue commenting in the chat, listening to Val reminds us of why we started HDR.
Aw.
Love it. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
and I have to imagine that a lot of veterinarians, some vet techs, social workers, other inspired individuals listening to this episode are really thinking the same thing.
Aw, thanks.
So yeah, no, you're amazing. And my last question for you is before I let you get back to your very busy and fulfilling career. Um, so as you continue to grow and expand Oasis Cat Care, I have to say it's so cool having this conversation with you. As you're kind of in the weeds, building this from the ground up. We've had guests like that on this podcast. Sometimes we get people from more established organizations, which is great too. But we're scrappy here at the Street Dog Coalition. I like these conversations more, especially because when it comes to this question, and this question is, as you continue to grow and expand Oasis Cat Care, what are your hopes and goals for the organization, and how can we as an audience, as a community, both remotely and in person in Pittsburgh, help you achieve these goals? I want to let our listeners know that I've included a link to your website in the show notes. So, however you answer this question, I'm going to just make sure everyone knows you can click on the link in the show notes to learn more about Oasis and to lend your support. So, what are the goals? How can we help you reach them?
Um, well, I think goal number one would be to like officially establish the foster program. And I think so obviously we want to do the temporary fostering for crises, and that'll be a big part of it. Another thing I would like to be able to do, and might even end up happening first, depending on like depending on what barriers fall where, would be like a temporary foster to adopt, but in situations like I mentioned where like older adults maybe have to go on hospice or move to the nursing home. What are they, plants now? I'm losing it. Anyway, the nursing home, and can't take their cats with them.
Sure.
It would be great to be able to provide like a foster to adopt service where that person can still be involved.
Mm,
Maybe they're not directly like approving adopters or anything, but they can still maybe see their pet, or they can be allowed to be part of the process where they know that their cat is in a comfy foster and now their cat has been adopted. Maybe they can like hopefully even visitation. That's something, there's a group in Canada called My Grandfather's Cat that does that.
I follow them online.
Oh, I love them. They're
I
great.
love them. They're so cool.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
such a great
I had
idea.
a woman come in once and she was just chatting with me. She was an older lady, and she had a dog, but she was saying she looked so sad. She was like, I would love to adopt a cat. My dog loves cats. Her cat had passed, but she's like, I have to go in for surgery and I have no one to, I don't even know what I'm going to do with my dog.
Mm,
This was a while ago, and she's like, I can't adopt. And I'm like, I don't want that to be a barrier to adoption for someone who, she's perfectly mobile. She drove herself there, but she
yeah.
didn't know when she was going to come out of it. And she was like, I can't in good conscience take a cat. And I'm like, well, what about your dog? So,
Mm.
being able to provide that as a service as well, for people in that situation. So I think that's another part of it. And we would also really like to support the fosters themselves and like people working in rescue. I think we know it, but like it's a tiring and it can be really difficult and depressing
Yeah.
sometimes. And I
Yeah.
think it's hard because we're generally empathetic people and want to just keep going and helping, but it can be really hard to do that. So I think like providing some kind of like community and maybe even like not therapy, but like mental health services to people
Yes.
working with us would be great. I would love to do like a rescue like spaghetti dinner or something. I don't know that like
That
but just
sounds
like hang out with rescue
amazing.
people. Yeah, right. I think that would be really nice. So yeah, I think just like expanding our services. Oh, and another thing, right now because it's the least expensive, like financially part, we're really trying to do advocacy and like sharing resources with people. Because that's a relatively easy thing to do with social media. But I think being able to expand that, I can't think of what group it is, but there's a group who is working on giving like resources to landlords to help them understand why they should accept pets and why they should lessen or get rid of pet fees. And they've had a lot of
Wow.
success, and I think that would be great because that is a big barrier here too. It depends on who you're with, but there's some landlords in Pittsburgh that charge like exorbitant amounts for a cat. which is a
Ah,
big barrier for people who want to adopt or who have a cat already. So I think starting to do like more intense advocacy with like organizations around Pittsburgh, like that would be another step we want to take. Um, and I think the biggest help right now, we do have a GoFundMe, which money always helps. We can start providing some stuff for fosters for veterinary care. That would be great. But also just like reach out to us.
yeah.
I'm sure I think Tim said this on his episode, but like if you have any kind of talent and you want to help, like just let us know what it is. We can probably find something for you to do. Um,
Yes.
yeah, like we definitely we want more of a community because more people helps. So yeah, like definitely just interact with us. That's very helpful.
Oh, that's so wonderful. It seems like you're really thinking short term, long term, thinking about the needs of the animal, thinking about the needs of the individual at the other, at the other end of the situation. And I really feel like, and of course, and I know, you're in good company with Harmony. You guys are so um engaged with your community and trying to make sure that you're not like doing double the work by leaning on people who might be doing work that your organization, your mission could benefit from. I really
Right.
think for all those reasons, I mean, not that you need me to say this, but I think for all those reasons, your organization is going to skyrocket to success.
Aw, thanks. I hope so.
Yeah, it's a no brainer here. I really appreciate how you've considered all these different situations that some of your clients could be in and how you are sometimes I think it's easier to get like tunnel vision when you're in these early stages of planning, but you seem to have this really wide open perspective on all the things. So I want to encourage our listeners and supporters to visit the website. The link is in the show notes, as I mentioned. Please reach out, like Val said. If you have a talent, Val's going to use it. Whether that talent is, making phone calls, helping take care of animals. I don't know. Yoga. I went to a yoga class today. I can
Yeah.
imagine if you're a yoga fan or a yoga teacher, maybe some kind of community yoga class for
Yeah.
the
Yoga with
rescues.
cats. So much
Yo
fun.
Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not alone in that. But
Oh,
it
it's a
really,
blast.
it really is true. If you have, there is that like beautiful intersection of things you're really good at, things you're really passionate about, and things organizations need, right? Right in that little triple Venn diagram, I think that there is a beautiful opportunity for someone to volunteer their time. So I want to encourage all of our supporters and listeners to please click the link, check out Oasis Cat Care. Val, thank you so, so much for your time today. It means the world to me to be connected with a fellow cat person who's gone above and beyond cat person. I think we got to get you a shirt that says cat person, but then we cross off person and just write like rescuer, rehabilitator, and just
All the
every
things.
all of the things. Seriously, I can't thank you enough, Val. Like you're awesome. I'm so
Oh, thank
glad that
you.
you're doing the work you're doing and that you're a part of our street dog family, Harmony Dog Rescue, who's still in the chat. Thank you, Tim, for being amazing. And Val, I hope that we get to have you back on the podcast again soon. We can talk about all the other things that you're up to and see how your organization has grown.
Yeah, see how it's going.
Yeah. And please don't hesitate to reach out to like me at the Street Dog Coalition, however we can support you. I think that this is a no-brainer in terms of our partnership. It's inevitable. And yeah, if you ever want to have a virtual spaghetti dinner, I
Oh,
love
yeah.
spaghetti.
Same.
Just saying. All right, Val, you're amazing. Thank you again so much for your time today. Thanks
Yeah,
to
thank you.
everyone who tuned in. Yeah. And until next time,
Sounds good.
adios. Take care.